Hello students and families, my name is Gary Chan and I am your children's geometry teacher. In this video I will go through some of my goals and philosophy for this course, as well as some of the logistical things that happens from day to day, so that when you guys come in for parent-teacher conferences, hopefully you guys have viewed this video beforehand. You guys can come in and you can ask me questions about how your children are being educated. Every summer I go through weeks of reflecting and planning to try and give your children the best possible experience in the year ahead. And this year, there's so many things to reflect upon. And I've come to this conclusion. The most important thing that I can do for your children is to continue to keep your children engaged and to offer them feedback. As a teacher and as a parent, I don't know how I can't put an actual weight on these two things. I can't say like whether or not one is more important than the other, but certainly these two things come hand in hand. I feel like when students are engaged, everything else will fall into place. So being engaged and then being told whether or not certain things are done right is also important, right? Because if you're not given the correct feedback, then you will not know whether or not you're doing things correctly, and you can't grow from there. So structurally, how is this embedded in the course? As some of you guys may know, right, because you guys are going through it, our school is practicing the blended model. So some families are entering into the school once every 3 days, and there's a slight interruption for some students. So because of this, new lessons as well as new assignments are rolled out once every 3 days. I encourage you to click on the links that I have here for the geometry lesson as well as the assignments to just get a sense of like how the lessons are structured and how the assignments are arranged. Typically, the lessons look like a PowerPoint with some new theorems and new concepts introduced in the first couple of slides, and then following those slides are some worked out examples. If you click on the assignments, right, usually the assignments will be a set of problems that are associated with the lesson notes, and that are really similar to the lesson notes. Lesson notes are due at the beginning of class, at the beginning of the 3-day cycle. Because we're trying to adopt and apply the flipped classroom model, students have to take these notes before coming into class, so that when they do come into class, they can be engaged and we can engage in conversation about these topics. Once they come into class, once they come into the live sessions, what are we to do? We are then working on the actual assignment itself. And these assignments are due at the end of every 3 days. I encourage you to click on bullet point B and bullet point C just to get a sample of how of the types of student work that is being produced. So how does taking notes in geometry look like, and how does completing an assignment in geometry look like? I encourage you to click on those just to get a sense of what they are. There's also the active engagement Google Doc that I have your children create, and what that is a an ongoing Google Doc that I have your kids access at the end of every live session. So to get a sense of how engaged they are when we go through the live sessions, I ask that they take a photograph of the work that they've produced in the past 20 minutes or so of class, and then to insert that into the Google Doc. And that is where I can then see whether or not your child was engaged. During the live sessions, I go through and actually call on students at random. I try to get through every single child, as many as I can. With every, by the end of every week, my goal is to have every child be called upon. So students have to be on their toes during live sessions. And because I can't get to every single one of them, that's where the active engagement Google Doc comes in, where I can then go in and I can see whether or not work is actually being produced during those live sessions. And again, I encourage you to click on bullet point D just to get a sense of what active engagement during geometry looks like. So the first couple of bullet points, A through D there, they are all trying to get your children to be engaged, right? So to be engaged means to be focused, to be on target, to be doing the work, right? So bullet point E is where they are getting feedback. They are also getting feedback when we go through the live sessions, because I am calling on them and I am asking them questions, but it's not as, because I can't get to every single child, I do need other mechanisms to give feedback on, right? So that's where bullet point E comes in. So what are rapid assessments? And again, I encourage you to click on the hyperlink there that labeled rapid assessments. So at the beginning of class, I ask that your children be engaged in a one-question quiz. And the one-question quiz, it asks your children whether or not they are confident in the material that we are currently working on. And students are generally allowed like maybe 3 minutes of at the beginning of class, and once they're done with it, they're done with it, right? If my policy for these assessments is that if they do the assessment, they will get the credit for that assessment, regardless of whether they did it right or wrong. And that is the same for all the other things that I've listed here on this presentation thus far, right? They will get credit no matter what. Some of you guys may be like probably rolling your eyes, questioning like, well, how does anything matter then, right? Again, I've put a lot of thought into this over the summer, and what I've concluded was, if I'm learning something new on my own, then what I want from an instructor is feedback. If I am putting in 100% of my effort, right, and I am being graded on my effort, then of course that's very defeating. I don't want that to be the attitude in the semester, in this year, being the platform that we are operating in. So that's the rationale for why I believe credit should be granted, okay, if your child has put in the time and effort into it. If you click on the other hyperlink, which is labeled students are allowed to redo, right? So students are allowed to redo these rapid assessments if they get it wrong. So, and what I do is, when you click on that link there, students are allowed to redo, you're going to see that that's a sample Jupyter Grades output. Okay, so you're going to see that this particular child actually has 1 out of 1 on all of those rapid assessments, on all of those RAs. Okay, that's what they are getting on Jupyter Grades. They're getting credit for it. However, in the comments section, that's where I indicate to the child as well as to families whether or not they are getting things consistently right. So if you notice in the comments area there, for the various rapid assessments, some of the rapid assessments, this particular child earned 0 or earned a 1 or earned a 1 star. So this is my notation so that you're clear with it. A 0 means the child attempted it but got it wrong and did not reattempt. A 1 indicates that the child got it right the first time around. A 1 star means there was a reattempt. Okay, and eventually they finally got it. So this particular child that you're looking at here, started off the year by, getting things not correct, and eventually sort of caught on to the system, and was aware of like how to operate, and given that he is getting feedback, whether on the rapid assessment, he then developed that confidence, and it does appear that it is working for generally across the board. So I am proud of the system, that students are given credit, but also at the same time they're given feedback on whether or not they got things right. Another area where I give feedback, so just to recap, there are actually there are two instances where students are getting feedback. One is during live sessions where I call on students, and then the second instance is during the rapid assessments where I let students know whether or not the application of the concepts are correct. The third instance of where students are given feedback is during these summative assessments. And the summative assessments generally are in two parts. One is multiple choice, and the second is free response. And again, I encourage you to click on those links there. That will give you an idea of what a multiple choice assessment look like and what a free response assessment would look like. And the students are allowed to retake the multiple choice, and I will do the same thing. I will give them credit for the multiple choice. However, I will indicate in the comments section whether or not there were multiple attempts, whether or not the attempts, what the point value was in the first attempt, what the point value was in the second attempt, what the point value is, and if there was a third attempt. And again, all of that would be indicated in the comment section. If you click on students are allowed to redo multiple choice, you're going to see that this particular child, for the multiple choice, attempted it once and got a 5 out of 5 on it. So the child, did very well there. It's actually the same child as the student that was mentioned in item letter E there. Anyway, so the if let's say if that child attempted it multiple times, I will then indicate the raw scores multiple times. Let's say 3 out of 5 first, and then a 4 out of 5 the second time, and then a 5 out of 5 on the third time. And so again, this is the system to how geometry operates. Again, the theme is engagement, and second is feedback. So there's the issue of like, well, how is it that my child is feeling that the course is moving too quickly, or the course is moving too slowly. Okay, what are we to do then? Well, I'm going to answer the second question first. What happens if if your child is feeling like the course is moving too slowly? I would encourage that your children go through the assignment, okay, listed in item letter A there. Go through that on your own, because if your child is feeling like they understand the material and they are not being particularly challenged, the system is put in place so that your child can go through the assignment on your own. And there are answer keys that you can access. There's also something else that I've created, which are called live session exercises. And again, I welcome you to click on that link there. So the live session exercises are exercises that are more challenging than what's required of students to really test and challenge their understanding. I would say about maybe a quarter of students, maybe that's a little overestimate, okay? Maybe I would say 10 to 25% of every section of geometry that I have, students, there's about a quarter of them that complete the assignment before the 3-day cycle is over, and that quarter engage in these live session exercises. If you click on the live session exercises, that link there, you're going to see that those problems are a little more challenging, okay, than the actual assignment that's required. And the challenge is not so much that it's above and beyond what's required. However, it does draw on multiple skills. It does draw on multiple algebraic understandings, right? So I encourage, if your children feel like they are not being particularly challenged, okay, that they do try to engage in those live session exercises. And the last thing I want to talk about here is the resources that are available to your children, and that is the Geometry Google Drive resources. So you can actually access all of these things in the Google Drive that I've created. And that was already shared with your children. I mean, that link there and item 2 there is also now shared with you guys. You guys can also access this. So for instance, the live session exercises, which is listed in bullet point G, those are the questions there. Let's say, your child is engaged in that and they don't feel particularly confident in solving item in solving that particular live session exercise. What they can do is they can go into the Google Drive and they can access the key. And for most of the things that I've authored, I've actually created videos, both for the lesson as well as for some of these practice problems. So I'm just going to quickly go into the Google Drive resources and show you what I mean. So the Google Drive, when you click on Google Drive resources there, it's going to bring you to this folder here, Geometry Lessons. So this is the folder that it's going to direct you to. And here, this is literally the entire course, and everything is in alphanumeric order. And if you noticed, in the assignments, I usually have a very strange like index for organizing everything. So everything here is U1, meaning Unit 1, and then the various lesson numbers, right? So we're so when this video was made, okay, your children are currently engaged in lesson U1A06C. That's this guy over here, right? So this is where your children are at currently in the curriculum. And if I click on, let's say if your children, were feeling like, oh, my child gets this, he or she needs to be, more challenged, I would encourage them to go into the live sessions exercises and try these problems out, right? So let's say right here, this is the live session exercise for the current topic that we are engaged in, right? I encourage them to go through and try this on their own. And if they are confused, right, there are solutions that are also embedded here, which is, let me see, which I have here, I believe. Right. Okay, so this is the solution here. If you click on this link, okay, it will redirect you to a video to me going through those exercises. Students, this is a video on assignment U1. So anyway, I'm not going to bore you with that. You guys can definitely explore the Geometry Google Drive resources for yourselves. And the lesson is right here. And I also want to hit on this one other point. If your child is feeling like the class is moving too quickly, right, then the other side is you can always go back and you can re-access these lessons. You can always re-watch the videos, right? So every lesson at the start, I have right over here this title, right? U1A06C. I can solve angle relationships formed between parallel lines and transversals. That right there is a hyperlink which will redirect you to the video for this lesson. And I also have narrated solutions, okay, to exercises. So all these resources are available to your children where they can get feedback and where they can continue to be engaged. So anyway, I think I've covered everything I needed to say in this presentation. If you guys, again, have any other questions, or if you guys cannot make it to parent-teacher conferences, I think this is at least a good place to, to know how the course is run. And also Jupiter Ed gives you an idea of how your children are doing So to get a sense of what the picture is like in geometry. All right, and of course, if you have any further questions, I look forward to seeing you guys at parent-teacher conferences. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye now.